Alright guys, BLM here. We're back with a new video. In this video, I'll be talking about my experience with Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 ReMIX. So let's get this out of the way. There will be spoilers for every single game in the collection, which includes Kingdom Hearts 1, Rechain of Memories, 358 Over 2 Days, Kingdom Hearts 2, Birth by Sleep, and Recoded. So if you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this video. So for my prior experience with Kingdom Hearts is a series I've always wanted to get into, but I just never could. I played Kingdom Hearts 1 for the first time back in I think 2011 on the PS2, and while I did play about half of the game, I never really connected to it. And I bought this collection on Black Friday of 2017 and gave Kingdom Hearts 1 a shot once again and still didn't really care for it. I stopped playing the game after Wonderland. I died twice at the boss at the end of the level and just decided, you know what, I don't really care enough. And then we jump forward to 2019 right now where Kingdom Hearts 3 was about to come out, and I decided, you know what, let's give it another shot. Let's finally give Kingdom Hearts another shot. And this time it went slightly better, but not perfectly. So yeah, obviously here we're starting with Kingdom Hearts 1. That was the first game I played, obviously. And this time I was able to play most of the game. But even though I did play most of the game, I still have an overall mixed opinion on it. From a gameplay perspective, it was fine. The camera's pretty bad. The platforming's pretty abysmal. The RPG elements are pretty standard, especially for a game for 2002. Combat is your standard hack and slash fare, especially in this first game where I don't feel like they add enough skills to really differentiate itself. I mean, the graphics on this remaster are pretty good, and that goes throughout the entire collection. But especially for this game, considering it came out in 2002. The soundtrack is incredible, as it is, again, for all the games in the series. And I hate the gummy missions. The gummy missions suck. Obviously, they're pretty much just rail shooters, but they're so boring. And they're not difficult at all in this first game. They just feel like a whole bunch of wasted time. The Disney worlds are obviously the big appeal to this game. I feel like there's some good ones, there's some bad ones. I really like Deep Jungle. I like Agrabah. But I really hated Atlantica. I didn't like Monstro. But something I did really like about these worlds in general is the fact that they all felt different. They all played differently. And I think this really emphasizes something that the entire series of Kingdom Hearts does, which is does the smaller details very, very well. But through that, I feel like they have some pretty faulty bigger gameplay elements that you would think a game of this scale and this budget would have, but for some reason they don't. Now let's talk about the narrative, which I think is also pretty solid. I think this first game's narrative is pretty focused, and is a pretty good setup for the rest of the series. The actual stories within the Disney worlds are kind of pointless and really just there to add Disney properties to the games. And that's how I feel about them in every game. I feel like the actual stories within these Disney worlds never really matter. But in this game, at least there's a purpose for doing them. Sora is obviously searching for Kairi and Riku, while Donald and Goofy are searching for Mickey. But to be honest though, I never really loved these characters from Kingdom Hearts. The original characters here, a lot of them just feel like standard anime characters. Really cheesy dialogue and the theme of friendship just being super blatant. Now, I was saving this for last, so we're going to talk about it now. The boss battles. They're such a major part in the Kingdom Hearts franchise, and to be honest, in this first game, they're so difficult. So difficult to where I didn't finish the game. I did get to the very, very end of the game. I got to the Ansem fight, but I died over and over and over again. I literally did this boss battle for around an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then I just said, screw it, I was watching it online. It's such a ridiculous boss battle that has so many different stages. And with this boss battle having a really ridiculous checkpoint system, it's really just such a pain to play. That and also the fact that I was just severely under-leveled. I think I was level 48. You're supposed to be at least level 50 by the time you get to the end of the world, which is the final world in the game. And I would die at this Ansem fight after only 2 hits. I actually did start to do some grinding, but kind of realized that just to level up a few levels, it would take hours. It takes forever to level up in this game. And to be honest, at this point in this series, I wasn't really an enormous fan. It was okay, but it wasn't something that I really wanted to go out of my way to finish. The entire endgame, though, is just so ridiculous and tedious, starting from the Hollow Bastion point, where it's just a really annoying dungeon that takes a few hours to get through, and there's a whole bunch of tough boss battles within it. And then that's directly followed by the end of the world, which is again another 2 hours straight of non-stop fighting, numerous boss battles, and again the terrible checkpoints. It's so bad. It's not fun. So yeah, overall, while I didn't finish Kingdom Hearts 1, I was definitely intrigued by the narrative enough to continue on to the other games. So I did move on to Rechain of Memories immediately after I watched the ending. Now we're getting to Rechain of Memories, which was another pretty interesting experience. It's so weird the fact that this was originally a Game Boy Advance game that was remade for the PS2. And I gotta say, I liked the game for the first half, but we'll get to that a bit later. Now, from what I understand, most people dislike this game, mostly because of its combat system, which I gotta say, I actually like. The combat system is real-time and card-based, which are two things that normally don't go together. But I thought this added an interesting strategy to the game, where you need higher power cards to overpower your opponent's attacks, and you gotta know when the right time to use your cards will be. The combat itself is pretty similar to the other Kingdom Hearts games, it's just you need cards to activate any type of attack or magic that you use. Now, this also adds an annoying bit to the game where your opponent can activate a higher leveled card to block your attack, meaning that you waste cards. And considering every single time you run out of cards and reload, you get less cards each time. The game itself uses a lot of assets from Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. You could tell it's a remake with very minimal voice acting and just being a smaller game comprised of smaller rooms, isolated rooms for combat, and a similar structure throughout the game where in each world you have to find 3 key cards that each progress the story. The narrative of the game is interesting as it was made to bridge the gap between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, introducing a lot of characters that show up in Kingdom Hearts 2, and explaining why Sora has to start all over again at the beginning of the game. I did enjoy the narrative as it expanded on the series' lore, but I do feel like the game and the narrative both get pretty repetitive. As I said, you have to do the same thing every single time in every single world, and then in between worlds there's a cutscene or a boss battle that plays out. And then this is followed by, after you finish the main game, there's another playthrough where you play as Riku. And you do the exact same thing over and over again, just with a different story. I did find the Riku storyline kind of boring and for the most part pointless. There are a couple things that are important, but for the most part, I didn't feel like it really needed to be in the game. So I should mention this now. Like Kingdom Hearts 1, I did not finish Chain of Memories. I found the first half of the Sora playthrough pretty fun. I was actually enjoying myself until I got to the Vexen fight. I literally played this boss battle over and over and over again for 3 hours. And what was frustrating here is that this wasn't like the Ansem fight in Kingdom Hearts 1 where I never made any real progress. Here in the Vexen fight, I knew I can do it. I know I can do it. I did it so many times. I got so close to finishing them off numerous times, but I would always just mess it up at the very, very end. See, I just quit. The problem here was the fact that I didn't have strong enough cards. And with the way this game is structured, to grind, you need to stay within that world, or else you need to start the entire world again. But then again, I mean, in this world, the Vexen fight automatically activates once you leave the world, so I was completely screwed. So yeah, I watched the rest of the cutscenes online. As I said, I did enjoy the Sora narrative, but I did feel like the Riku narrative was pretty slow. Again, I was really enjoying Rechain of Memories, potentially more than I even enjoyed KH1. But with me not making it anywhere close to the end, I just feel like this was just such a massive disappointment for me. Now, we're going to shake up the order a little bit with these next things. 358 over 2 days is actually the next game in the collection. However, I did play Kingdom Hearts 2 first, so we'll be talking about Kingdom Hearts 2 first here. And that is the way I would recommend you experience this anyway. While 358 over 2 days is a prequel to 2, Kingdom Hearts 2 was meant to be experienced first, considering 1, it came out first, and 2, it definitely leaves a lot of intrigue there that you wouldn't have if you watched 358 over 2 days first. So when comparing Kingdom Hearts 1 to 2, I feel like the gameplay of 2 is obviously improved in almost every single way. The combat is more refined. I did like the drive forms here, even though I didn't really use them very much. I really only used them as a last second measure. That being said, what is annoying about this game is that dodging is very difficult. The fact that an actual dodge roll or anything isn't in this game, outside of one of these drive forms, is a really annoying gameplay element. The Gummy Ship missions are improved with more dynamic paths, but to be honest, I still didn't really care for it. I still found most of them pretty boring. Something I hated in this game, though, was the abundance of minigames and quicktime events, as I just felt like they were annoying, weren't really well done, and also they were spread throughout the entire game. The boss battles here seem grander, more imaginative, and, to be honest, much easier. And to be honest, the difficulty of the game in general is much easier, with there only being one boss battle that I had any real difficulty with that being the Roxas battle, that wasn't even included in the original version of the game. So yeah, this is actually the first game I did finish. The entire game is on a much bigger scale, with larger Disney worlds, and there being some really unexpected ones for me, like Pirates of the Caribbean, Steamboat Willie, and Tron. I mean, like, who thought there was going to be a Tron world in Kingdom Hearts? But what I did find annoying is that in the first half of the game, you go to all these worlds, then you go to Hollow Bastion, some major events happen there, and then after that, you have to go back to each of these worlds and do another storyline. And really, I didn't feel like there was any real narrative reason for this either. Obviously, they come up with an excuse, but it didn't really feel like a necessary thing. I might as well talk about the narrative now, and I'm pretty mixed on it. Where I felt like Kingdom Hearts 1 was a very focused, good introduction to the series, Kingdom Hearts 2 is just all over the place. I hated the beginning where we played it as Roxas. The fact that that was pretty much just a 3-hour tutorial is really annoying, and it just could have been easily cut down. And again, the Disney Worlds had no real narrative reason for them, like the other Kingdom Hearts games. They're kind of just there just to have Disney properties. Outside of the Disney Worlds, I really love the middle section in Hollow Bastion. I really love the world that never was. Those being the two major points in the game that the most narrative stuff happens. However, just like the end of the world in Kingdom Hearts 1, I do feel like the ending section here went on for way too long, with you having to beat Xemnas like 1 billion times before he finally stays dead. I also felt like some of the plot lines here were pretty blatant retcons. Now, they make sense within the world, but stuff like Ansem from KH1 not being the real Ansem, and now there being multiple Ansems and multiple Xehanorts, it's like, come on, that was not the original plan. So overall, I enjoyed Kingdom Hearts 2 more than Kingdom Hearts 1. It's probably my favorite game in the series I've played so far, but it's not perfect, and it's definitely pretty messy in terms of its narrative, and also has some dumb game mechanics. Now let's move on to the two movies, which I did watch after starting Birth by Sleep, but I finished them before I finished Birth by Sleep. So yeah, we're just going to talk about them here. So I watched 358 over 2 days first, and while I hated the Roxas sections in Kingdom Hearts 2, I love 358 over 2 days. If you don't know, this was originally a DS game, and instead of remaking the game for PS4, they decided to make it a movie instead. And I thought it was a near perfect prequel to Kingdom Hearts 2, filling in a lot of the gaps in that story without contradicting anything previously, and telling a really compelling narrative at that, telling the story of Roxas, Xion, and Axel, and they actually made me care about this trio. And as I said, that's one of my biggest complaints of Kingdom Hearts, is the fact that I never really cared about any of these characters. Again, Sora, Riku, and Kairi feel pretty generic to me, but I feel like 358 over 2 days tackled some really interesting themes and made me really like this trio. And making Roxas and Axel two characters who I really didn't care for in Kingdom Hearts 2, probably two of my favorite characters in the entire series at this point. Now for the other movie, which is Recoded, and I have the complete opposite opinion of Recoded here. Recoded sucks. Again, this is another movie made of cutscenes from a DS game that was actually already a remake of a mobile game. It's easily the worst thing in this collection, with 99% of this movie being completely pointless. Literally nothing important happens until the very, very end, which does tie in the characters from 358 over 2 days and Birth by Sleep into the current narrative, and also sets up the events of Dream Drop Distance, but that's literally like the last 10 minutes of a 3-hour movie. And the rest of the scenes throughout the movie are pretty much just retellings of like events that happen in Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. It's so bad. So finally, we're going to talk about Birth by Sleep here, which is a game I actually liked, but I have very mixed opinions of. From a gameplay perspective, I think it's a mix of Rechain of Memories and Kingdom Hearts 2, with the combat playing out pretty similarly to Kingdom Hearts 2, but there is a deck system that you use for your magic and stronger physical attacks. The camera here is pretty bad. Now, while the camera is pretty mediocre throughout the entire series, it's very, very bad in this game. I think a lot of that coming from the fact that, again, this was originally a PSP game, so it still has like the faulty camera from being on that console. Now, for the most part here, the Disney Worlds are pretty bad in my opinion. There's places like Enchanted Dominion and Castle Dreams that I thought were pretty boring, but I did like Deep Space, so at least there's that. Now, the way you finish this game is that you have to complete the game 3 times using all 3 characters. And while you do go to the same worlds in each of these playthroughs, the experience is completely different for each character, with each storyline occurring at different times, and with each character specializing in a different type of combat, with Terra being more physical, Ventus being quicker, and Aqua having more magic. Now, this game, for the most part, is fairly easy, until you reach the Keyblade Graveyard. I never really had much difficulty before that. I mean, the Aqua playthrough is definitely probably the toughest one for me, considering I'm usually more of an offensive sort of player. And Aqua uses a lot more magic, and also has a shorter range for her attacks. But the difficulty here really spikes at Keyblade Graveyard, with the final battles being brutal. Especially the Vanitas fight, when you're playing as Ventus, where I was literally stuck on this boss battle for about 2 hours. And to be honest, a lot of that just being due to the fact I didn't know what we were supposed to do at the very end of the boss battle. Obviously, I eventually figured it out, But considering the final battle is like a 2-phase battle, and I would always get to that second phase, but every single time you die, you have to go back to the first phase. That just frustrated the hell out of me. Now, from a narrative standpoint, I do like what this game does for the most part. I think this is a pretty great prequel to the rest of the series, introducing characters that become a major factor in games like Kingdom Hearts 3. And introducing us to the main antagonist of the series up to this point in Xehanort. The narrative, though, does get a bit repetitive, especially after doing the 3 playthroughs, as there are certain plot points that are the exact same, but just from a different perspective. Now for the characters themselves, I think that they're pretty standard Kingdom Hearts characters. Terra is a pretty generic Anakin Skywalker-esque character, where he's like a good guy that's struggling with darkness. Ventus is pretty much just another version of Sora, and I do find him pretty annoying. Aqua I feel like is the most interesting of the bunch, but she's kind of just fine. Something I do like about this game, though, is how these characters connect to future games. As you could tell, there were some elements in Rechain of Memories and Kingdom Hearts 2 that were set up with this game already in mind. Now, I did complain about Kingdom Hearts 2 having retcons, but I do believe after Kingdom Hearts 1, I do think from Rechain of Memories on, there was a solid plan, and I feel like Nomura has pretty much executed it. Obviously, there are changes to the plan, but when isn't there? Now, when it comes to the true ending of Birth by Sleep, I gotta be honest here, I did not do it. And the reason for it is I completed all 3 storylines. I completed the Terra storyline, the Ventus storyline, and the Aqua storyline, and then realized afterwards that you need to collect all the Xehanort reports to unlock the final ending. And I didn't know this at the time of playing, so I researched on how to get them, how to unlock this final ending. And to do that, I would have to replay the ending of those sequences, but collect the Xehanort reports along the way. There's no way I'm replaying that. I'm not replaying that. I'm done. To be honest, at this point where I'm at, where I finished Kingdom Hearts 2, I watched the 2 movies, and I slogged through Birth by Sleep, I'm done. I'm just gonna watch it online. I don't care. So at the end of the day, that means I only finished 1 actual Kingdom Hearts game in Kingdom Hearts 2. However, again, I got to the very end of Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1. Well, Rechain of Memories, I didn't even come close. But despite not finishing these games, I still enjoyed them to a degree. I'm still intrigued by the narrative. I like the world building. I like the way that Nomura has planned out his story from at least the time of Chain of Memories. So at some point, I would like to continue on and play the future games. So there you go. That was my entire experience with Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5. That took me about 2 months to finish, considering I did take a 1-month break in between Rechain of Memories and 2, kind of to cool myself down after the frustration I had with Rechain of Memories. So yeah, I do think I'll probably potentially do another video like this when I get around to playing 2.8 and 3, which will probably be way down the road, considering I think I've had enough Kingdom Hearts for right now. So there you go, that's my thoughts on the Kingdom Hearts series so far. So yeah, thank you for watching.